So this morning we are in our sermon series called Living Story, where we're talking about sharing the good news of Jesus. And what we're wanting to do in this series is to shift our focus a little bit away from what we can sometimes assume is the definition of evangelism. We sometimes think that it's big stadiums and famous evangelists, or we sometimes think it's only just talking to strangers on the street. But in fact, we want to focus our attention back on the fact that many times it's just the everyday sharing of a coffee with a friend, being able to talk about Jesus just in our everyday lives. A number of years ago, I used to work for a charity that worked with homeless young people. We provided accommodation for young people and taught life skills and budgeting and healthy eating, that kind of thing. And one year, we were due to host a fundraising dinner to raise money for young people to move on into independent living. Now, the fundraising dinner was due to be held at St. James's Palace, and the food was going to be wonderful. Obviously, the atmosphere would have been quite amazing, that setting. Even the entertainment was going to be incredible. It was going to be hosted by Jules Holland. But the biggest attraction of our fundraising dinner was the host. The host was going to be the charity's patron, Prince William. Now, this was all great until we found out that you're not allowed to raise money from the name of a royal. So it's protocol for the royal family that they will not allow their names to be used in the raising of money. So we had this great dinner, and it was going to be hosted by one of the royal family, a popular one at that, Prince William, but we weren't allowed to actually tell anybody that. So we got about designing these invitations, and we produced a beautiful invitation, gold lettering on lovely cream, thick, weighty card. And we put on that invitation that in the middle, it was going to be hosted at St. James's Palace, a fundraising dinner at St. James's Palace. And then underneath, we included key information about the charity's name, the charity's charity registration number, and of course, the name of the charity's patron, Prince William. So our hope was that we hinted enough that if people saw the invitation, they'd see, well, it's at St. James's Palace, and their patron is Prince William. What if he's actually going to host it? The dinner was a great success. Prince William was a brilliant host, the music was great, the food was lovely, but most importantly, lots of money was raised for young people to be able to move into independent living. And we were all really grateful for the invitations. But you know what? There is an invitation that is even more exciting than that. There's an invitation that's even more eventful, an invitation that can lead to redemption and restoration and life transformation. And that is the invitation to encounter Jesus. It's the invitation to come into a relationship with Jesus. If you are a Christian here this morning, at some point you accepted that invitation. You accepted the invitation to come into relationship with him and all the life and the hope and the love that involves. So if we know that an invitation to encounter Jesus is transformational, if we have experienced ourselves, in fact, then what stops us from sometimes inviting other people into that encounter? My sermon this morning is called The Power of Invitation. Turn to somebody around you and say, the power of invitation. So we're going to be reading from John chapter 1. If you have a Bible with you, please feel free to turn to that. Otherwise, it's going to be on the screen as well. John chapter 1, reading from verse 43. The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." So this passage starts with an awesome invitation from Jesus. Verse 43 says, finding Philip, Jesus said to him, follow me. It's an invitation to be in relationship with Jesus. It's an invitation to walk with him, to talk with him, to become like him. And it's not the only invitation. Time and time again in the Bible, we see Jesus inviting people to come to him, to follow him, to be in relationship with him. And Jesus' invitation to us is that we can find rest in him. Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30 says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He invites people to have everlasting life. And that's the invitation to us too. We're invited into salvation. We're invited into the love and the purposes of God for our lives. It's an invitation that, if accepted, utterly changes everything, utterly changes our complete lives. It's an invitation to wholeness and to hope and to love. It's an invitation for God to guide us in every aspect of our lives. It's an invitation for God to be with us, to be a constant with us all of the time. It's an invitation to experience joy and peace that surpasses all understanding. Do you know, it's not just an invitation to a palace, it's an invitation to a kingdom. It's not just an invitation to spend time with royalty. It's an invitation to be royalty, to be the daughter or son of the King of Kings. But this invitation is too good for us to keep to ourselves, isn't it? This isn't some sort of private members club that we're part of. We haven't got a limit on space. God came to rescue the world. God came to seek and save that which was lost. And so we're not just invited to know Jesus, we're invited to spread the invitation to others. We've been invited to invite others into God's kingdom. We've been saved to serve. And a great way in which others can encounter Jesus is by being invited into a church service or to an event or to an alpha course. Inviting people into a community that loves and worships God. Do you know the most popular reason why somebody first comes into church? Do you know what that is? Personal invitation. Personal invitation. Time and time again, in survey after survey after survey, people say that the reason they first came to church was because of personal invitation. And I'm not just talking about a fair majority. It's about 85 to 95% in most surveys say the reason they first came to church is because somebody invited them. Yes, we can put up banners. Yes, we can advertise events. We can even put flyers through doors. But all of those are to support a personal invitation. Now listen, there are people who check out a church on the website. There are people who watch on a live stream. There are people who might walk past the building and think, do you know what, I just feel prompted to come in. There are people who even dream about Jesus, and that's how they first come to church. But the majority of people who would not call themselves Christians and don't have an experience of church, the first time they come to church is because somebody invited them. Somebody gave them a personal invitation. Now, for some of you, you might be sat here thinking, oh, she started talking about inviting people. I'm starting to get that horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that I've got to go and do something. Do you know that really uncomfortable feeling? You might be thinking, it just makes me feel that little bit awkward. Can I just encourage you that at no point in the Bible does Jesus say, get out there and invite people or else. It's not Jesus's vibe, do you know? But what he does say is that he promises to make us fishers of people. Matthew 4, verses 18 to 20 says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. At once they left their nets and followed him. Follow Jesus and he will make you into a fisher of people. It's not an obligation that we have to kind of grudgingly fulfill. It's a consequence of being in a relationship with Jesus. It's a consequence of loving Jesus. It's an overflow. Our role is to grow in relationship with him. And one of the marks of somebody growing in relationship with Jesus is that they want to invite others. They're bursting to invite others. They're overflowing with God's love. They're so in love with Jesus. They're so passionate about him. They're so on fire for him that they can't help but invite people. If we're growing in Jesus, we'll be showing Jesus to other people. if we're growing in Jesus, we'll be showing Jesus to other people. And that's exactly what Philip does in the passage we read from John chapter 1. After Philip encounters Jesus, he finds Nathanael to tell him about Jesus. Verse 45 says, Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. You can imagine the excitement with which he says it. The one that's been prophesied, he's here. The one that we've been talking about, he's here. The one that we expected, he's here. He's finally here. And what's the response that he gets? It's not as enthusiastic, is it? Nathanael says, Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Now, if you've ever been rejected when you've tried to invite somebody, if you've ever been turned down when you've invited somebody to church or to Alpha or to an event, this might sound familiar to you. People that we know might be thinking, religion, can anything good come from that? Church, can anything good come from that? Some people think of Christians as so anti-things, don't they? Sometimes we've got a bit of that reputation that we're just against things. We're just anti-things. Let me tell you, before I was a Christian, that's what I used to think Christians were like. I thought they were miserable, judging, negative. I thought they were anti-fun, anti-love, anti-integrity. Until I got into a relationship with somebody who knew Jesus. My sister was able to show me just how wonderful Jesus really is. Because it's easy to caricature from a distance, isn't it? It's easy to caricature and say, those Christians, this is what they're like. But when we get close up with people, when we're in relationship with people, like me and my sister, when I saw up close what she was really like, I was able to say, do you know what? She genuinely looks like Jesus. She's not anti-things, she's for Jesus. She's for love. She's for me. And that's what we need to be known for, isn't it? For people. For Jesus. So despite Nathanael's initial response, instead of backing off, instead of being put off, Philip persists. And his invitation is, come and see. Turn to somebody next to you and tell them, come and see. Come and see. Not go and see. Come and see. Not go and find out for yourself if there's some sort of answer amongst the plethora of answers that might be out there. Come and see. Listen, the best events, the best courses, the best programs can be put on by churches, but people need a personal invitation to actually come. You know, it's great putting on programs, but people need to be prioritized, don't they? We could put on some awesome Christmas services next month, but unless we actually invite people to come, we will have missed an opportunity. I love this phrase, come and see. It offers something really concrete. It's not some kind of vague spiritual search. And it's not some kind of requirement that's put on somebody. You know, if you do this, 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 and this, then you might find out the correct answer. Then you might be welcomed. Then you might be accepted if you've cleaned yourself up and sorted yourself out first. No, come and see says, I found him. So can you. Come and see says, I'm in relationship with him, and so can you be. Come and see says, I've experienced and encountered the love of Jesus, and so can you. Come and see this Jesus. So, Jesus invites us into relationship with him, and we get to invite other people into relationship with him. But what stops us? What can sometimes stop us from extending that invitation? Why are Christians not always inviting people to events, to church services, to Alpha? I was reading an article on the Great Commission website recently, which is it's a great resource for stories and tools around evangelism. The person writing it had done a research project about inviting people to church. And the survey had been done across denominations, across countries, been done far and wide. And one of the findings was this. Although most of us would like to invite people to church, more than 80% of us have no intention of doing so. More than 80% have no intention of inviting somebody to church. Why is that? What gets in the way of us extending an invitation to somebody else? Do you know what? I think that most of us would agree that inviting people is a good thing. We think it's a good thing. And we know that being in a relationship with God is an incredible thing. So what stops us from extending that invitation more often? One reason why I think that we don't invite people more often to church is fear. Fear that we'll be laughed at, fear that it'll feel awkward, fear that we might be judged, fear that the person might say no is our ultimate fear, isn't it? Now, it's easy to say, well, we just need to get over our fear and just get on with it. But I think that undervalues just how much fear can control, just how much fear can have a hold over us. There's a reason why the Bible says again and again and again, do not be afraid. Because God knows that fear has the power to control us at times. When the Olympics were held in London in 2012, there were a number of facilities that were built to accommodate the different events. And one of those was the Lee Valley Whitewater Rafting Centre. And the Lee Valley Whitewater Rafting Centre had the slalom course for the Olympians to be able to go around and do their rafting. But it also opened to the public. It also opened so that people could book onto it and go around the course. Now, I like a bit of adventure, so when I found this out, I thought that sounds like a great idea. And then I also found out that it was floodlit, so you could go and do whitewater rafting in the dark at night time. So that sounded really exciting. So I booked on for February. Around a week before I was due to go whitewater rafting in the dark, the forecaster started talking about snow and freezing conditions. Then it didn't sound so much fun. So I like a bit of adventure, but even I was starting to get a little bit nervous then. As the day started approaching, the snow did indeed come. And I thought, oh, I realise now they're going to cancel it, because what kind of crazy person is going to make people whitewater raft in the dark in the snow? So I phoned up the centre and double-checked, just to check. I'm assuming that the rafting's cancelled on Tuesday, to which a confident voice told me, no, we go ahead, whatever the weather. So the day came and I arrived feeling pretty sick with nerves, got into a very, very thick wetsuit, had a safety briefing, got into the raft and pretty much laughed my way around the whole course. I had an awesome time whitewater rafting in the dark in the snow. On the other side of our fear, there is often something incredible. There is often something amazing. And you know what? When I've been nervous about inviting somebody to church or to Alpha or to a church-based event, if they've said yes, it's brilliant. If they've said yes, it's such a great feeling. You might be familiar with it. But if they say no, something good still happened, because I planted a seed. I stepped out in fear as well. I overcame whatever nervousness I might have, and I relied on God, and I still extended the invitation. That's what it does, you know. When we can step out in our fear and still extend the invitation, it means that we get to rely on God. It means that we get to flex our faith muscle. And you know what? God will never let you down. If you lean into him, he will never let you down. So even if your invitation is rejected, God will never reject you. God will never leave you. God will never abandon you. This is how faith is built, isn't it? When we choose to trust in God, even amidst the times that we're nervous or fearful, by looking past our fear and seeing Jesus. The reality is that the risk of not inviting somebody is bigger than the risk of inviting somebody. Don't believe me? Should we do the maths? So, if we don't invite somebody, there is 0% chance that they will say yes. But if we do invite somebody, surely the odds are higher than 0%. Invitational maths. Do the maths. The second reason why we sometimes don't invite people to church is apathy. Sometimes we lose a sense of urgency. Sometimes life just gets busy. Do you know, work might be busy, the kids need seeing to, we've got a relative who's unwell that we need to visit, there are a number of other things on our to-do list. We've just lost a bit of the sense of urgency. And it means that you don't necessarily have the time to meet up with that friend who you wanted to invite, who you were going to invite. Or maybe it's that you think, do you know what, my diary is so busy over the next couple of months that just don't feel like I've got time to put in a date in the diary to maybe invite my neighbours round to have mince pies and mulled wine, because that would be a great opportunity to invite them to the Christmas events. But diary's too busy. Christmas is a really, really busy time. Dominic talked last week about giving ourselves a bit of leeway in our schedules, about making space for coffee with that friend, about taking the opportunities in our everyday lives, making sure that our invitational lifestyle is just built in to our everyday, that we're able to have conversations with people in our everyday. Or maybe your apathy isn't necessarily about a lack of urgency. Maybe it comes from feeling a little bit distant from God yourself, just feeling that little bit far away from God. Maybe we're not feeling as excited as Philip was when he went to tell Nathanael that he'd found Jesus. Maybe we've got enough struggles of our own. Maybe life has become difficult. Maybe a number of things have happened that have meant that your once passion for God, your once excitement for God has been dulled that little bit. Do you know what? Sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to extend an invitation to people when you're not feeling that excited yourself. If you're not necessarily at church very often, it's hard to invite people into something that you feel a little bit detached from. If that is you, can I encourage you to rediscover your first love? Can I encourage you to read the Psalms? Can I encourage you to tell somebody else about how you first came to know Jesus? Can I encourage you to surround yourself with people who are on fire for Jesus, to get involved in a midweek group, to spend time in God's presence, to spend time with him, hearing from him who he says that you are. Don't allow yourself to just drift into apathy. The third reason why some people don't invite people is because they don't have anybody to invite. There's nobody that they know who they'd be able to invite. According to a survey commissioned by Hope, the Church of England and the Evangelical Alliance, a third of all adults and 45% of young people said they don't think they know a practicing Christian. They don't think they know a practicing Christian. So either they don't know a Christian, or the Christians they do know are living some sort of incognito, undercover style life. But that is a lot of people saying that they don't know a Christian. Do you know what that is? That is a lot of potential friends for us to go out and make. If you can't think of somebody that you'd be able to invite to a church service or to Alpha, to one of our Christmas events, then have a think where you could start to make friends, to make connections, to make relationships with people who don't yet know Jesus. It might be that you start a new hobby. It might be that you join a book club. It might be that you take up some sort of sport. It might be that you join some other type of group. It might be that you chat to the mums and dads at the school gate. It might be you go to a toddler group. It might be that you start volunteering for a charity. You get the picture. There are lots and lots and lots of ways in which we can build relationships with people who don't yet know Jesus. We can't be spending all of our time with Christians, only Christians. Our light needs to shine in dark places. And our invitation to church will likely follow a number of other invitations. An invitation to have coffee with somebody. An invitation maybe to invite them round to your house for dinner. But then you're able to speak from a place of relationship and invite people into your church or a church-based event or an Alpha or something like that. An invitational lifestyle involves inviting people into our lives to spend time with us and hang out with us, to open up our lives to each other. There shouldn't be a difference between believing that inviting people to church is a good thing and actually doing it. There shouldn't be a difference between thinking, do you know what, I think being in a relationship with God is awesome, and actually extending that to other people. We need to get to a point where our belief that inviting people is a good thing overrides any other emotion that we might have. That the urge to invite, the desire to invite other people is stronger than any apathy, than any fear, and any indifference. It's absolutely essential, that we pray for people to come to church, to meet Jesus. We've got our 316 initiative where we're praying for 3 people who don't yet know God. And this evening, Dominic's going to be talking at the 6:30 about the evangelism and prayer connection, about how we actually pray for people who don't yet know Jesus. But our prayers have to affect our hearts too. Prayer changes things, but prayer changes us. Prayer should move us into action. As we deepen our relationship with God, as we read the Bible, as we pray, as we pursue him, this invitational lifestyle will flow out from us. It moves away from being an obligation and moves towards being a consequence, an overflow of our lifestyles. Intimacy with Jesus leads to invitations to Jesus. Intimacy with Jesus leads to invitations to Jesus. It's by knowing him more that we'll overflow with a desire to invite others to an encounter with him. So what was the consequence of Philip's invitation to Nathanael to come and see? From verse 47, when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said of him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. you are the King of Israel. It was an invitation that was worth the risk, wasn't it? Nathanael finds Jesus and finds that Jesus knows him, and he responds to him. After he comes to Jesus, after Philip invites him to come and see, Nathanael sees this Jesus and declares that he is the Son of God. He declares that he is, in fact, the one that they expected, the one that they were hoping for, the one that was prophesied to come. But it gets even better than that. Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." What a promise. What a promise. I love this from Jesus. You think that was good? You ain't seen nothing yet. That's Jesus. And if you've read the Gospels, you will see he was true to his word. They saw greater things, and we get to see greater things. We get to see greater things. Isn't that awesome that that is the God that we worship? He is the God that fulfills his promises. He is the God that says there are greater things. He is the God that comes through. He is the God that promises us greater and awesome things. And he delivers. He delivers. Jesus comes through. Did Philip know that this was going to be the result of his invitation? When he approached Nathanael and said, "Come and see," did he know that it was all going to work out really, really well? I doubt it. I don't think he knew what was going to happen. I think he was just bubbling with excitement. I think he was just so excited that he'd found Jesus. He was so excited that this really was Jesus, that the Son of God was in fact here, that he couldn't help but tell his friend. He couldn't help but tell him. It was just spilling out from him, this invitation to come and see. It was just spilling out of him. On the other side of our invitations is Jesus. On the other side of us extending an invitation to somebody else to come and see is Jesus. It's the best invitation that we can give to someone. Turn to somebody around you and say, "It's the best invitation." It's the best invitation. And do you know what? Reality check. Sometimes people won't accept your invitation. And sometimes they won't accept the invitation to encounter Jesus. Yet. But you will have sown a seed. You will have planted something there. And you will have stepped out even amidst any fear that you might have. When we do, Jesus shows up. Jesus always shows up. If we can get past our fear, if we can get past our apathy, if we can make sure that we are in relationship with people who don't yet know Jesus, Jesus promises that he will show up. Jesus promises that he will be with us. Jesus promises that he will be doing greater things than we've even known before. Do you know next month it's going to be Advent? And we're going to be moving towards Christmas. That is the best time in the whole year to invite somebody to church. It's the best time in the whole year to invite somebody to a church service. Let's make sure that we are a church that is living an invitational lifestyle. Let's make sure that we're in relationship with people that we're able to extend an invitation to, that we're able to invite into a service, that we're able to invite to an event. But that might start with inviting them round for a coffee or inviting them for dinner, that kind of thing. But we need to give people the opportunity to respond to this awesome invitation. We need to make sure that we're inviting people into God's story. Because you know what? It just might be that their story is completely transformed. You need to sow seeds. We need to sow seeds. That's our role, church. God does the saving. We're the ones that do the inviting. And so God will give us all the courage that we need. God will give us the passion if we allow him to move in our hearts. And God will give us the opportunities to reach out to people who don't yet know him, so that